Hello, all of you. Today we'll start your engineering mechanics portion. So today I will start with the first module, which consists of the introduction to vectors and tensors. So today we'll start with this topic. So this will be your first class, and today we'll discuss about vectors. First I will do with vectors and then we'll start tensors. Okay, so let us start today's portion. So we will first start with the introduction. Okay, we will start with the introductory topics which you have already done in your 11th and 12th class. Also, so now what is the vector quantity? Before that, what is the scalar quantity? Okay, the scalar quantities have only magnitude, are those quantities which have only magnitude. Okay, and examples of these are like time, speed, density, energy. Okay, so you already know these things. Now next thing is, what is a vector quantity? Vector quantity has both magnitude and direction. Okay, so examples of vector quantity are, and also that it possesses direction, and also it must obey the parallelogram law of addition. Also must follow the parallelogram law of addition. Okay, we will discuss about this thing, this parallelogram law of addition. And examples are velocity, acceleration, force, momentum. Okay, so you already know these things. Velocity is a vector quantity, okay, velocity, but speed is a scalar quantity. So these are some basic things. Now vectors are of generally three types. Okay, vectors are of three types. The first one is a free vector. Now what is a free vector? Free vector is the one whose action is not confined or associated with the unique line in space. Okay, whose action is not confined or associated with unique line in space. For example, suppose a body which moves in a particular direction. Okay, it moves in a particular direction without any rotation. Suppose there is a body which moves without rotation. Okay, so now suppose this is a body which moves without any rotation. Now then the movement of the displacement of any point in this body, may be taken as a vector. And this vector it describes equally well in the direction and magnitude of the displacement of every point in the body. Or we can say that this point which represents the direction and the magnitude of the displacement of every other point on the body. You have understood? A single point which represents the magnitude and the direction of all other points which make up this body. Okay, so this can be said to be a free vector. So the displacement of this body can be represented by a free vector. So the next one you see is a sliding vector. So what is the sliding vector? It has a unique line in space it has a unique line in space, but not a unique point of application. Okay, so suppose there is a rigid body. So an external force acts on this rigid body. When an external force acts on this rigid body, okay, this force can be applied at any point along its line of application. Now this force, it has a line of application. This is the line of application, and this force can be applied at any point on this line of action on this body. Okay, without changing the effect on the body. So you can apply this force on any point along this line of action. So this is a sliding vector. So this force can be said to be a sliding vector because it can be applied at any point on this line of action. This point can be over here, this here, anywhere, but not over here, because this point is not on the line of action of this force. Now this third type of vector is a fixed vector. Fixed vector. Now this fixed vector is one which has a unique point of application. So there has a unique fixed vector is the one which has unique point of application of the force, and it is specified. Okay, so this type of the action of this kind of force is on a deformable or a non-rigid body. So in case of a deformable or a non-rigid body, the point of application of the force, it must be specified by fixed vector. So in case of non-rigid and non-deformable bodies, which is not rigid, so the body can deform. Okay, so in case of this non-rigid and non-deformable bodies, the action of force must be specified. Action of force must be specified by fixed vector. So here the forces and the deformation within the body, which depend upon the point of application of the force, as well as on the magnitude and the line of action of the force. So this is a fixed vector which is applicable in case of non-deformable and non-rigid bodies. Now how a vector is being denoted? You know that the vector is denoted by a line segment. Denoted by a line segment. So we will write this entity and above that an arrow, a line segment. And this has a direction. This arrow, it denotes the direction of the vector. To indicate that in which direction it is being acting, force or say momentum. Okay, and the length of this line segment, it represents the the length of this line segment, it represents a certain scale, and which describes the magnitude of the vector. So the magnitude of the vector is being represented by this length of this arrowhead when it is represented in a certain scale. Okay. Suppose we can say that this length of this vector, suppose it is 1 centimeter. So we can say that this 1 centimeter length of this arrowhead of this line segment, it is equal to suppose 10 newtons. Okay. Now suppose there is a 3-dimensional space. Suppose there is this 3-dimensional space, and this vector which is represented so this is the x-axis. Suppose this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis, and this is the z-axis. Okay, so suppose the angle with the x-axis is theta x, with the y-axis this is theta y, this is theta y, and with the z-axis it is theta z. Vxi Vyj Vz k. Now a vector, this vector v, suppose this vector is v, this vector can be expressed mathematically by multiplying the magnitude of vector v by multiplying its magnitude v by the vector by another unit vector which can be denoted by any number. Suppose we denote here by n. So this vector can be represented by multiplying its magnitude by vector n whose magnitude is 1, which is a unit vector. This n is a unit vector. And whose direction coincides with that of the v. Whose direction coincides with that of the v. Now this v can be supposedly represented by magnitude of v into n, where n is this unit vector along the direction of this v. So this is how we show the magnitude and direction of a vector in a mathematical expression. Now this vector v, you can see that in a space, in a three-dimensional space, will resolve it into three components along three axes: x-axis, y-axis and z-axis. and this I, small I cap, j cap and k cap, these are the unit vectors. These are the unit vectors along x, y and z axis respectively. Okay, so we can represent this vector v. We can represent this vector v as vx I cap plus vy j cap plus vz k cap. Now we'll take this directional cosines L, M and L. So now this L is suppose cos theta x. L is equal to cos theta x. M is equal to cos theta y. And N is equal to cos theta z. Now you can write that Vx equal to V into L or V cos theta x. V cos theta x. So you can write it as VL. Similarly, Vy you can write it as Vm and Vz. We can write it as V into N, where L, M and N are the directional cosines. So now accordingly you can write that from the Pythagoras theorem. From Pythagoras theorem you can write this, that V square is equal to Vx square plus Vy square plus Vz square. So this is the expression we get, and also this implies that this relation implies that L square plus M square plus N square is equal to 1, or the sum of the squares of the directional cosine is equal to 1. So this is what we get. Now suppose there is this vector V, this vector V. Okay, so the opposite of this vector will denote it as, its magnitude is same, but in the opposite direction we will denote it by minus V. So now vectors must obey the parallelogram law of combination. So suppose there are two vectors, and V2. So they must obey the parallelogram law of combination. This law states that the two vectors, this parallelogram, it states that two vectors V1 and V2, they must be treated as free vectors. So the two vectors must be treated as free vectors, and they may be replaced by their equivalent vector V. They must be replaced by their equivalent vector V, which is the diagonal of the parallelogram. So the two vectors must be replaced by equivalent vector V, which is the diagonal of the parallelogram. Formed by V1 and V2. As its two sides. So this vector V, which also can be said to be a resultant vector, Now how we will do this vector combination? So that this vector can be, you know that it is a property of a vector, you can translate it along this direction. You can translate along this direction, and also you can first you take this vector over here, then you bring it over here without changing its magnitude. So this V2 can be brought over here. So now this vector can be, without changing its magnitude, it can be brought over here, translated by translation property. Now this is V1 and this is V2. This is V2. So the resultant will be this. So it is shown in a very small figure. You can draw it a larger diagram for better understanding. Suppose this is V1 and this V2 over here. Suppose first it is brought over here. This is V2, and by translation property you can write this as V2. So this will be the resultant V. So this is said to be a vector sum, and it is represented by V is equal to V1 plus V2. Okay, so this plus sign is vector addition. This is not scalar addition. This is vector addition. Okay, so this is about this vector addition. Okay, so we'll continue with our discussion in the next class. So this is all for this class. Okay, we'll also discuss about tensors slowly afterwards. So thank you.